Hello, I'm Sonia Crosby. I want to welcome you to the Detroit-Wayne County Community Mental Health Agency training on Medicaid fair hearings, local appeals, and grievances. I will present this training in 3 modules, each followed by a short quiz. After you have successfully completed the training, you will be able to print a certificate of completion. Before you begin, please remember to save and print the training documents provided on the introduction page. Please enjoy the training. In this video, you will learn about the fair hearing process for Medicaid beneficiaries. Fair hearings are one of the due process options for individuals enrolled in the Medicaid program who receive mental health and substance abuse services and supports from the agency through the Managed Care Provider Network. A fair hearing is not the same process as a local appeal or a grievance. It is not a process that must follow a local appeal. A fair hearing is not intended to replace any other regulatory or procedural protections accessible for the individual that is being served by the public mental health system. By filing a request for a fair hearing, an individual is exercising their right to review an action that has come to the attention of the individual as a result of receiving a notice of action. By requesting a fair hearing, the beneficiary is initiating a due process option that is guaranteed to Medicaid beneficiaries who choose to challenge the action being taken or proposed relative to the services and supports they receive. The fair hearing process is defined as an impartial review of a decision made by the agency or its designees, presided over by a Michigan Administrative Hearing System, or MAHS, administrative law judge. The agency has developed a policy to establish expectations and provide guidance for the provider network relative to requests for fair hearings. A fair hearing is also commonly referred to as a Medicaid fair hearing or an administrative hearing. Fair hearing requests must be submitted in writing to the Michigan Administrative Hearing System for the Department of Community Health. The information about the due process option for a fair hearing available to a beneficiary is detailed in the Notice of Action. Whenever a notice of action is sent to a Medicaid beneficiary, it must include a request for hearing form and envelope along with the notice. Instructions for the form are on its reverse side. The request for hearing form is not required to submit a request for fair hearing, but it is helpful as a means of assuring that all of the necessary information is included for the MAHS review. A letter detailing a request for hearing is also acceptable. If the individual chooses to put their request for fair hearing in writing, the following information should be included: name, address, and telephone number for the person whom the fair hearing is being requested, as well as the same information for the person requesting the fair hearing, if different. The benefit or program involved should also be identified, along with what decision is being challenged. Hearing requests must have an original signature, and requests made by unauthorized persons may be denied by MAHS. All hearing requests should be mailed to Michigan Administrative Hearing System for the Department of Community Health, P.O. Box 30763, Lansing, Michigan 48909. Note, if a hearing request is received in another location, a copy of the request should be immediately faxed to MAHS at 517-335-6696. The original request should be forwarded to MAHS within 7 days. An individual may request an expedited hearing. Expedited hearings may be granted by MAHS. The beneficiary or authorized representative may call MAHS to request the expedited hearing, and only MAHS may deny a request for an expedited hearing. The agency-designated fair hearing officer is responsible for any communication with MAHS regarding the request for hearing following its receipt. Any individual interested in filing the request for hearing must be provided with assistance to complete forms and take other procedural steps. This includes, but is not limited to, providing interpreter services and toll-free numbers that have adequate TTY and interpreter capability. It may seem like a conflict to help an individual file a request for hearing when the reason they're making the request is in response to an action being taken by someone within the provider network. A request for hearing should not be viewed as a negative response or as an indication that the action is not appropriate. Instead, it should be seen as a reflection of the individual's awareness of how to access the fair hearing process and verification that the notice of action provided contained the appropriate information and instructions. The beneficiary has up to 90 calendar days from the date of the notice of action to request a fair hearing. Timing is a critical factor when filing a request for hearing. The provider must reinstate the service or support during the pendency of the fair hearing if the beneficiary specifically requests to have services continue, and the beneficiary files the request within 12 calendar days of the date on the notice, and the appeal involves the termination, suspension, or reduction of a previously authorized service, and the period covered in the original authorization has not expired. The services are continued or reinstated while an appeal is pending. The services must be continued until one of the following occurs. The beneficiary withdraws the appeal. The administrative law judge orders a decision which is adverse to the beneficiary, or the time period or limits of the previously authorized service have been met. It is important to be aware of any pending challenges to the action so that there is no interruption or delay in reinstatement of the service. A local appeal request does not need to be completed prior to a request for hearing related to the same action. The two processes can be concurrent. There's no requirement for any type of local level review by the agency before accessing the state fair hearing process. A fair hearing request may be made by the beneficiary or their representative. The representative may be anyone they choose who is at least 18 years of age and has been given written permission from the individual to represent them. A representative may also be a guardian or conservator, though a copy of the court order naming the guardian and/or conservator must be included with the request. The provider may file a request for hearing on behalf of the beneficiary only if the state permits the provider to act as the beneficiary's authorized representative in doing so. The agency has a designated fair hearing officer to act on their behalf as a party to the fair hearing. They are responsible for the administrative functions associated with a fair hearing request and serves as the agency representative during the fair hearing process. The MAHS is responsible for notifications regarding the fair hearing and will provide them to the beneficiary or representative and the fair hearing officer at the agency. This includes the final decision and order. Hearings are routinely scheduled for telephone conference calls, but a request may be made for the hearing to be conducted in person. In-person hearings are usually held at the agency offices. At any time before the final decision is issued by the administrative law judge, the individual or their representative may withdraw their application for a hearing. The withdrawal must be made in writing on the hearing record. It is crucial that while any issue is still in dispute, that you do not suggest the individual withdraw their request or mail a withdrawal form to the individual. The fair hearing process is one option for Medicaid beneficiaries who don't agree with an action identified on the notice of action. It is a state-level challenge to the action and a key mechanism for exercising the right to due process afforded within the Balanced Budget Act. A local-level challenge that may be requested by a beneficiary is called a local appeal. Please take a few minutes to answer a short quiz.